Texas Tech will be searching for its first 3-0 start in Big 12 conference play since 2013 and for only the fifth time in program history on Saturday night out in Tucson, Arizona against the Wildcats. In today's video, we'll preview that matchup, give you the odds and prediction, the latest injury update, and much, much more for your Red Raiders. Hey, how's it going, everybody? It's RC Maxfield here for the Back to 12 podcast. And listen, it's a preview video. You know what question I'm about to ask you. Go down to the pinned comment section down below and give me your score prediction for Texas Tech at Arizona. And, well, they're going to say it's prime time, but damn near Sunday morning is when this game will end, as it will be a 10 p.m. Central Time kickoff. Get your caffeine ready, folks. But let me know your score prediction down on the pinned comment below for your Red Raiders against the pesky Wildcats of Arizona. All right. Let's lay a little bit of the scene here. But before we do, I found this stat interesting, and this is courtesy of TexasTech.com. Texas Tech is 12-8 in Big 12 contest under Joey McGuire, marking the most wins by a head coach through his first 20 league games since Steve Sloan was 14-6 at the same point from 1975 to 1977. Now, this game will take place at Arizona Stadium in Tucson, Arizona. Kickoff, as I mentioned, get your caffeine ready, is set for 10 p.m. Central Time. Man, I was a fan of Pac-12 After Dark, but that was because my team wasn't involved in it. This game will be nationally televised, though, on Fox. Now, the history between Texas Tech and Arizona actually dates back all the way to 1931, but the Red Raiders have not faced off against the Wildcats since 1959. Yes, this will be the first matchup between the Wildcats and Texas Tech as Big 12 foes. Texas Tech actually owns the all-time series dating back to, well, the Border Conference. And the Red Raiders lead that series 26-5-2 because ties were a thing back in the day. When it comes to the injury report for the Red Raiders, out for Arizona is Javion Wilcox with a knee injury and Dylan Shaw with a hand. When it comes to the questionable tag for the Red Raiders, out in the desert, got a laundry list of guys and a couple of guys that are vitally important for the Red Raiders in the secondary. Now, let's start with Charles Esther III with a thigh injury. Going to the secondary now, you have Chapman Lewis with a hamstring. You've got tight end Jason Llewellyn with a head injury. Braylon Lux, a guy that we will discuss in more detail here in just a second with a thigh injury. Jalen Peoples with a hip. You've got Joseph Plunk with the shoulder. And then an outside linebacker in Isaac Smith with a head injury. Those guys are all designated as questionable for this game for the Red Raiders out in the deserts against an Arizona team that is coming off of a win against a top 10 Utah team in Salt Lake City. Now, players to watch for Texas Tech. We're going to obviously start with the quarterback in this one, in Behren Morton. Which Behren Morton's going to show up on the road, right? Like, which one are we going to see? Are we going to see Washington State Behren Morton, or are we going to see the Behren Morton where we've kind of seen those flashes on the road? I think it's more so the flashes, and more so because you have Taj Brooks standing right next to him in terms of being in the Red Raider backfield. But don't get it twisted. Arizona has a really good secondary, and it is led by Takeriko Davis, who is 6'4". Yes, 6'4", and a legit first, second round, maybe at worst third round talent in this coming up NFL draft. He is the leader of that Wildcat secondary and a guy that, well, Behren Morton's going to need to know where he is at all times. Behren Morton is going to have to minimize the turnovers, but maybe even more importantly than that, he is going to have to maximize the big play opportunities that Wildcat secondary presents on Saturday night. Now, at this point, we know that Taj Brooks is the focal point of the Red Raider offense, right? Like, it goes as Taj Brooks goes. I don't think there's really anything else to discuss on that matter, but he is a player to watch because he's on his way to potentially being the all-time leading rusher in, well, Texas Tech program history. Just over 600 yards away is he on that front. I would expect another game where you see Taj Brooks get in that 25-plus carry range because they are going to need him out in the desert. Now, The lone defensive player I'm talking about on both sides, outside of, I guess, Takarico Davis, talking about corners here. The Red Raider corner we need to discuss is Braylon Lux, because it is vital, and I can't stress this enough. It is vital that he plays in this matchup for the Red Raiders, because he is going to be the number one guy against arguably the best wide receiver, not in the Big 12, but in the country. I could make the argument, okay, and we'll talk about him here more in just a second, the wide receiver for Arizona, but you have to have Braylon Lux back, because he is one of those true difference makers and allows guys to fall into place, quote unquote, in that Texas Tech secondary. But he is clearly the best corner you have, and you have to have him against McMillan of Arizona. In fact, let's go ahead and talk about McMillan. They call him T-Mac, okay? Let me know if these stats are pretty good. Through 4 games, by the way, 29 catches, 503 yards receiving, and 4 TDs. Need I say more? I mean, this guy is legitimately a top 10 NFL draft pick type talent, okay? He is that good. He could legitimately be the number 1 wide receiver taken in next year's NFL draft. Maybe it's Travis Hunter, but McMillan's got a really, really good chance to be that guy. Now, he already has a 300-yard receiving game under his belt this year. Yeah, you heard that right. 304 to be exact against New Mexico in game number 1. He will be priority 1, 2, and 3 for the Texas Tech defense on Saturday night. And it will not just be a Braylon Lux issue if he plays. No, you may see a double team, if not a triple team of McMillan, because he is clear as day the best playmaker on that Arizona offense and arguably the best wide receiver that the Red Raiders will play this year. And oh, by the way, his connection with Noah Fafita, the quarterback, as we transition into talking about him, dates back to high school. These guys are on the same page each and every play for Arizona. And Noah Fafita is an absolute baller. Do not let his size fool you. I don't know who's taller, him or me. I'm 5'9" for reference, but I know who is clearly better at throwing a football and more athletic. And obviously that was, well, I guess obvious, because I'm talking into a microphone and he's absolutely hooping out in Tucson. But he is a guy that can beat you with his legs. Don't let his rushing yards fool you. He's a guy that really gets out of the pocket, can extend plays, and make virtually every throw you need a quarterback that is mobile to make on the run. And again, his favorite target is T-Mac. Know where McMillan is at all times, because there is a real chance that McMillan goes for 200-plus yards if you do not defend him properly on Saturday night. Now, it doesn't just stop through the air for the Wildcats. They've got a pretty damn good offense out there in Tucson. Their running back, Conley, is a guy that is one of the more underrated running backs in the Big 12. And, I mean, to be fair to Conley, he is a good running back, but there's some really damn good running backs in the Big 12, most notably Taj Brooks. You've got the Ollie Gordons of the world, Neal at Kansas, Harvey. The list goes on and on, right? But Conley is a really good running back and is going to be a guy that impacts this game. Texas Tech is really going to have to be sure to not let him bounce outside and create those big plays. Try to force him to run through the A, B, and C gaps and try and minimize those big play opportunities for him on the ground, as he is, well, 9th in the Big 12 in rushing this year with 322 yards so far and averaging about 6 yards per carry. All right, the must-watch matchup. We've already talked about these two guys, but I can't stress it enough from a Texas Tech point of view. Braylon Lux versus T-Mac McMillan, the star wide receiver for Arizona, is by far the biggest matchup in this game. And let me say this. Braylon Lux will not be asked to guard him by himself. I mentioned that a little earlier, but I want to stress it. This is going to be a double team situation, if not a triple team type situation, with how good T-Mac is. McMillan is a bona fide star, okay? And if you don't guard him properly, I mentioned it a little bit earlier, he could easily go for 200-plus yards receiving in this game. Like, there is a world where he catches 12 to 13 passes for 250 yards. I wouldn't put it past him, okay? But this is a situation where if you're Texas Tech, you just force Fafita to beat you by himself in terms of going to other people. Now, it's much easier said than done, but that should be the clear objective for the Texas Tech defense. But it starts with Braylon Lux as the primary DB guarding T-Mac in that Arizona, well, wide receiver room, and they've got a couple of good ones out there, but most notably him. And again, I know I've said that multiple times, but my goodness, the dude is an absolute freak. All right. The odds for this one, it actually opened up at 3.5, Texas Tech, in terms of being underdogs in this one. It quickly went up to 5.5. I mean, like drop of a hat, right? That kind of stuff. As it stands right now, Arizona is minus 6-point favorites, or 6-point favorites, I guess, in this one. The total over-under is set at 64.5. I think that's too low. I think this is going to be an absolute shootout out in the desert, and truth be told, I cannot pick Texas Tech to win this football game until they prove to me that they can win on the road at a, sustainable level, okay? Prove to me you're different this year, Texas Tech. Prove to me you can win on the game when you win on the road, when you have Taj Brooks. Prove to me you can do it, right? Not just one time here and there. Prove to me you can be a consistent player on the road and have a meaningful game in terms of not getting blown the hell out. Okay. With that being said, I've got Arizona 38, Texas Tech 35. I think the Red Raiders score late, but Arizona's probably close to, up by double digits in this one in terms of late. That's kind of what I expect because, again, prove me wrong, Tech. I'm more than happy to give you credit for proving me wrong, but I think it would be a little bit biased in rose-colored glasses like of me to say that I think Texas Tech is going to win this game when in all reality, they've been boo-boo on the road. Really. I mean, for a while now, but specifically in the Joey McGuire era. All right, one more time. Let me know your score prediction for Texas Tech at Arizona. Am I being too harsh on the guys with that score prediction? They're only losing by 3, but I think it's a late score to get it there for the Red Raiders. But let me know your score prediction down on the pinned comment below for Texas Tech at Arizona, a 10 p.m. kickoff. Again, get your caffeine ready if you're in the Central Time Zone for this one. And if you haven't already, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on that notification bell to join the most active Texas Tech community on YouTube and the largest active Texas Tech community on YouTube by simply liking the video, hitting that subscribe button, and turning on that notification bell. Oh, yeah, and one more thing before I head out of here, it's 100% free.